Hey friends, I'm hanging out on the back porch with my dad. My parents are in town for us to go to the district conference tomorrow, which is nice. So they'll be hanging out at the parsonage tonight with our kids. And Amanda and I will go stay at their place in East Aurora for the district conference on Saturday morning, and then we'll be back with you guys on Sunday. But we were. My dad told me. I asked my dad to be here for two reasons. One, this coming Sunday is Father's Day, so
Yay.
so my dad gets to be here in the video. But he also told me this really funny story about Hudson the other day when he was hanging out at their house. And so I asked him to share it because it made me think of our scripture for this coming Sunday. So I just think it's a good story. So go ahead, you can tell it.
So, if any of you are grandparents, you know one of the greatest joys in being a grandparent is getting to teach your grandchildren things, how they work, why we do them, how they began, history. So, I was with Hudson and I was using the weed eater, and he was asking me some questions about how it worked with the string, with the battery. So I went through and showed him step by step. And at the end of it, and I have a habit of using this term, I said, "So Hudson, does that make sense?" And I've said that to him so many times. And finally, this time, after explaining the weed eater, he looked at me and he said, "Pop, I don't know what does that make sense means." And so I stopped, flabbergasted, thinking, how do I explain, does that make sense? So we had an interesting discourse, but it was a huge life lesson for me with grandchildren.
Oh.
So hopefully now it makes sense.
It's not just you. I feel like I've been saying, does that make sense for them for years?
Because of me.
Yeah. Like, that makes sense, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. And they'll just nod their head. Yeah, that makes sense.
We finally had the courage to say,
I don't even understand
it
what this
doesn't make
means.
sense.
What does this mean? I love that story. It also reminds me of our scripture for this Sunday, which is Trinity Sunday, which is this day in the church year where we just remember and we focus and reflect on the fact that we worship a God who is triune, right? Who is a Trinity, and there's a mystery in that. And so one of the scriptures that the church often uses to illustrate the Trinity is a really familiar story. We find it in John 3, the story of Nicodemus, who was a Pharisee who came to Jesus in the middle of the night one night and asked him. It was just like asking him a couple of questions, and Jesus tells him something that we're all very familiar with, that you have to be born again. And so that's something that us as Christians are really familiar with, that idea. Yeah, well, you have to be born again. And Nicodemus asks the question kind of like how Hudson asks it, right? Like something like a phrase that we're so used to saying. And Nicodemus says, how can someone be born if they're old? It's almost this like childlike type question. And so we're going to answer that question this Sunday. We're going to just kind of dig into a scripture that we're all very familiar with and answer that. How can someone be born if they're already old? And it's also Father's Day. We're going to reflect on what it means to have a God who describes himself as who is our Father, but also is the Son and the Spirit, and just how that informs how we relate with our own fathers and how those of us who are fathers, how we are fathers in that way. And so there's just a lot that we're gonna talk about. Just what can we learn about who God is through the understanding of God as a Trinity, and how can that shape our lives? And so, yeah, I look forward to doing that. And in the myriad of ways that we go through this life as fathers and grandfathers and all the fun stories that come with that. So know that I love you. I'm praying for you guys, and I look forward to seeing you all on Sunday. Take care, friends.